Hey everyone, my name is Troy Kinsey. Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk about 5 common pitfalls that leaders, teams, organizations fall into when attempting to mature, enhance, improve a service management ecosystem, or just manage a service management environment. So we'll stick with these 5 for today. There are certainly others, but these are the 5 that come to my mind when I think of big pitfalls. So big things to watch out for. So the first is technology first. So a lot of organizations believe that by procuring a new technology that they can shortcut a lot of the steps involved in maturing their organization. So a great example of this is a ticket management system. And the reason why that's a good example is because it's really involved. So a ticket management system impacts a number of processes, number of organizations, teams within organizations. So it's a great example to use. It's a great example of when not to go technology first. And to instead set up structures, process, accountabilities, and then overlay that with a new technology. Now, there are a number of reasons why it's a bad idea to go technology first, but we'll stick with one. We'll stick with training. So we're going to have to train and ensure that everyone is comfortable in using a new technology. So that takes time, takes effort, takes people away from their normal jobs. As we, if we have an environment where we're going to end up changing at some point in time the structure or processes that exist, or worse yet, they're not really well defined, they've just essentially become common practice because we've done them so many times, but they're not really well documented, accountabilities aren't clear, then we were going to run into 2 different problems. So the first is it's going to be really difficult to train folks on how to use the new system, the new technology, because it's not well defined. And 2, we're going to have to do it again once it is defined. So there are other examples in terms of how data is stored and structured, how processes and systems and solutions are designed, but hopefully the training one alone causes the folks to essentially give it a little pause before going down this road. If you have any questions or thoughts on this, please include them in the description below. Love to talk about these topics, so I would love to hear from you. Okay, so the next is not really appreciating or visualizing or understanding the customer experience. So oftentimes the metrics, for example, we put together the service target metrics and the processes that we put in place, oftentimes I find that, and this isn't true all the time, but oftentimes it's devoid of actually customer feedback and input. So the challenge with that is we're kind of second guessing what the customer A needs, and B, what the implications are when customers don't get what they need, when one of our or more of our services either becomes degraded or inaccessible. It's really important to understand not just what that impact is, but what steps the business has to take in general terms to recover from those episodes. So my advice is to always try to get some level of customer feedback and use that as a basis for setting up target metrics, service metrics, process design, and try to really visualize what the customer experience is going to be like. Not just high level steps, but really kind of dig into what that experience looks like. And again, what that experience is when our services become unavailable. So what kind of target metrics do we need to set up to make sure that our customers are getting what they need? One great opportunity to make this happen, to essentially to better understand where customers are coming from, are interviews and workshops. So collaborative workshops that are based upon um, that essentially are designed with the idea of defining what the outcomes are, defining what we need in terms of service metrics or process outcomes are a great opportunity to do this. And it also starts us down that road of developing a good rapport with our customers. The third is decision making. So a lot of organizations, when they're working to improve their service management ecosystem, so processes, structures, personnel, how it all fits together. That's what I mean when I say ecosystem. They really don't have a process or a mechanism in place, or at least a formalized one for decision making. And when improving a component, so improving a process or how we're structured or any of the other component or technology that we're using, it's really important that we have the ability to make decisions promptly and decisions that are based upon what the organization's objectives and design is. So one way of doing this, one way of addressing this is to create a governance structure. So a structure that essentially, a simple one meeting a week with those folks that have the right insight to be able to discuss what's happening, and pose solutions, pose ideas, and then individuals within the governance structure meeting that can make decisions and decide essentially that yes, this is the right decision. These are the design principles that we're basing it on, and these are the other criteria that we have established in order to make those decisions. What that does is it sets up a mechanism for a couple of things. So it sets up a mechanism for decision making for the service management initiative. It also can be used to ensure that communications are consistent and governed, and then it also can be used as a point of escalation. So from a tactical standpoint, I typically set up a once a week meeting with the right individuals, of course, based upon the criteria we discussed before, with standards. So this is how we're going to make decisions. We're based upon this criteria. And then, based upon those meetings, this is how we're going to communicate, later in the week, what the outcomes of those meetings are. So very important and a very cool tool to help facilitate decision making, communications, and escalation management for service management initiatives. So the next one is thinking only tactical versus strategic. So there are a number of ways that we can implement process and components such that one feeds the other. And if we really don't think ahead, if we don't really have a roadmap for how we're going to evolve our processes or how we're structured or how we're adopting technology, we lose out on a lot of that opportunity. So focusing just on the tactical, how we're going to make marginal changes here and there, incremental changes, as it were, makes it difficult to take advantage of opportunities to link services components, service management components together. So also it makes it more difficult to actually motivate teams and the overall organization towards those goals. So if we've painted a picture with a carefully structured roadmap and set of design principles, then it's going to play a major role in helping to motivate and galvanize the organization and the teams themselves. And the last item, number 5, that I want to talk about was training. So I've noticed that a lot of organizations really kind of overdo it, to be candid, when it comes to training and documentation. So I've seen long 2-hour, 3-hour training sessions on processes like change management or incident management, or some of these fundamental processes, let alone some of the more advanced like service catalog management or knowledge management. So my suggestion is to try to simplify it as much as possible. We discuss use cases in another video. Use cases are a great way to make sure that everyone understands at a high level how a process works or a component works and functions, and what the inputs are, what the outputs are, and how you get from one to the other. So my strong recommendation is that we employ that whenever possible, employ use cases and simplify the processes that we have. So it's more important that individuals that are using the processes or components and that are impacted by them, that they understand what the principles and the service targets are versus having to understand all the different nuances that could theoretically happen. It's important that everyone is on the same page in terms of how it really should functionally work. Everything else will tend to fall into place. As I mentioned earlier, there are a number of other pitfalls. These are the top 5 that come to mind. I've included these in a book that I just wrote that should be available soon called A Practical Guide to Service Management. If you have any others you'd like to share or thoughts or suggestions, please include those in the comments below. Thank you for your time, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye-bye now.